Hello, beautiful class. We're going to work on some of the Chapter E homework. So I'm going to start with, I think it's question number 7. There are several parts to question 7, but we're going to go through a variety of them. So let's just do them. Let's do them all to make sure there aren't any questions on this. The email I got only pertained to one of them, but I want to make sure you guys are comfortable with all of them. Okay, to remind you, when we multiply or divide, right, we're counting sig figs. And our answer is going to have the least amount of sig figs as the number with the least amount of sig figs in the calculation. I should say the same amount of sig figs as the number with the least. But when we're doing adding and subtracting, we're looking at decimal places. In one of our classes, we went into actually talking about precision, but in this class, we generally just talk about decimal places. Okay. So let's start with part A. I think part A says something to the effect of what's 1007? Oh, I already messed it up. It's 10,007. And I'm still messing up. It's 3.10007 times 8.696 times 0.0301 divided by 2.31. Okay. So if we want to calculate this thing, notice they're all multiplying and dividing, so we're going to use sig figs. First, let's calculate it. That's the easiest thing to do. So my calculator, I like to show you guys what I'm doing so you can catch if I mess up. 0.007 times 8. And then divided by 2.31. So in this, I get an answer of 0.351273629. I didn't need to write all those numbers, and you might know why. It's because I wrote way too many sig figs. So again, we multiplied or divided, so we're looking at sig figs. This number has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sig figs. This one has 4. Remember, zeros before numbers never ever count. That doesn't count, that doesn't count. This one only has 3, and this one has 3. So if you ask yourself what's smaller, 6, 4, 3, or 3, the answer is 3. You underline through the first 3 numbers, ask if that number next to it is 5 or greater. It is not, so our answer is 0.351. You could also put that in scientific notation as 3.51 times 10 to the negative 1, and both of those would be acceptable. All right, part B asks if you have 0.881 plus 132.1 plus, minus 12.02, it wants to know the answer. So first things first, let's do this. Yes, I could do it on paper, but I'd rather use a calculator here. So 0.881 plus 132.1 minus 12.02. And I get an answer of 120.961. But we added or subtracted. So when we add or subtract, we're looking at the number of decimal places. By decimal places, we mean the numbers that come after the decimal. So this has 1, 2, 3 numbers that come after its decimal. This has just 1 number that comes after its decimal, and this one has 2 numbers. So what's smaller, 3, 1, or 2? Hopefully you agree 1. That's why our answer should be 1 decimal. You underline up through 1 decimal, ask if that number is a 5 or greater. It is, so you gotta round up. Remember, our answer still needs to have 1 decimal place. So you probably agree that if you have $120.96, that would round to $121, right? But again, it has to have 1 decimal place. So that's why you put 0.0 to ensure that we know, we know it all the way to that tenths place there. And that would be your answer. All right, don't forget we could also put this answer in scientific notation. It would be 1.210 times 10 to the 2. Notice, this changes the number of decimal places. Now it has 3. Do we care? We shouldn't. We only care about normal notation, as that is the one that dictates decimals. Okay, so in normal notation, that's where we dictate our decimal places. So make sure you recognize both these numbers are the same. Doesn't matter which answer you put, but we knew it to the tens place in both situations, and that's what's important. All right, now we're taking the same concept here, and I think we start kind of mixing things. So let's do it. Everything we learned holds true. You just have to keep track as you go through. So 8.0610 times 21.20, and I'm dividing this by the quantity, 48.35, plus 1.223. Okay? If we were doing this math-wise, hopefully you guys agree. Remember PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiply and division, then add and subtract. We're doing the parentheses first, okay? So let's go ahead and add these up. We have 48.35 plus 1.223. So when I add these two up, I get an answer of 49.573. Cool. But did we add and subtract or multiply and divide? Hopefully you agreed. We add and subtract. When we add and subtract, we look at decimal places, right? This one had 2 decimal places. This one had 3 decimal places. So how many should this one have? Hopefully you agree it's 2. So we underline up through those 2. Okay, so check this out. If we round in the middle of a problem, it can really mess things up because we get rid of information that maybe we shouldn't get rid of. So we can keep track of the fact that we only knew this to the hundredths place, but we can still keep that 3 in the calculation, okay? So let's do that. I'm going to move on to this. Now we can do all of these together. 8.0610 times 21.20, you don't need the 0, and then divide it by 49.573. Okay. When I do this, I get an answer of 3.44730. 3976. And you'll get in the habit where you realize you don't need to write all those numbers, but it's healthy right now for us to just make sure. Okay, so hopefully you agreed. Here we added, right? But here we multiplied or divided. So when you multiply and divide, you look at sig figs. When you add, you look at DP. Here we're going to look at sig figs. So this thing right here had a total of 5 sig figs. This one had 4. And what about over here when we got this answer? Hopefully you agree that we underlined 4. Yes, we used all 5 numbers, but we only knew 4 of those numbers. So you got something with 5 times something with 4 divided by something with 4. How many should your final answer have? Hopefully you agree it's 4. We underline through those 4. Is that 5 or greater? It's not, so we get rid of it. Our answer is 3.447, or you could write 3.447 times 10 to the 0 if you want it to be in scientific notation. Both of those answers are correct. All right. Now we're getting down to part D. Part D, we have something similar. 12.01 times 0.1, to which we're going to add 4.011. We're going to do our parentheses first. So 12.01 is really, we're just going to move the decimal over, but nevertheless, 12.01 times 0.1 should give you 1.201, right? But we multiplied or divided, so when we multiply or divide, we look at sig figs, right? This had 4, this had 1, so what's smaller, 4 or 1? Hopefully you agree, 1. We underline that 1. Okay, so we underline this 1 because it only has 1 sig fig. If we were to rewrite this problem, just to make sure, I probably should have done it up here. We have 1.201 with 1 sig fig plus 4.011. Okay. Now we're going to add them up. When you add, again, you don't need to get rid of this number. You can keep all this information when you add it, because if you round it in the middle of the problem, you lose information that was vital. So we're going to take this number and we're going to add to it 4.011, and we get an answer of 5.212. But did we add and subtract, or multiply and divide it? Hopefully you agree we added or subtracted, so we're looking at decimal places. This one, when we underlined it, had how many decimal places? Hopefully you agree it had 0 decimal places. This one had 3 decimal places. What's smaller, 0 or 3? Hopefully you agree, 0. So therefore, our final answer should have 0 decimal places. You underline up through that decimal. It's important that you recognize that you knew the whole thing up to the ones place. And your answer is just going to be 5. So, all right. I hope that helped for number 7. The other question I got was regarding question 9. Let's see. Actually, I'll just film another video. So we'll call it a day. Cool. I'll film 9 as another video. Bye, y'all.